Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the clear clear your path. Oh, let me start again. Okay,
Oh my God. Okay.
ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Clear Your Path podcast. I am joined here by Christopher Claudius, a good friend of mine. We're gonna go deep into his journey. It's about a huge aspect of which is letting go, and he's going to share with us his wisdom, his understanding, and he's just going to help to enlighten us further. So, Christopher, it's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, Logan. Thank you for asking me.
Yeah, no worries. It was kind of a off the cuff kind of, you saw my post on LinkedIn, didn't you? And we've been friends for a while, but we kind of lost contact for a bit, and then we reconnected more recently.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've still got a lot in common. We view life in similar ways, and yeah, I wanted to interview you because I think you have a really fascinating story, and I would love people to hear your story. So firstly, if you can start off with telling the audience a little bit about yourself, what you do and who you are and how you came to be, really.
Well, that's a tough question because it's like, sorry, I got a bit of a sneeze. Maybe the sun's affecting my so hey, whatever. Anyway, some
Got a bit
pollen.
of hay fever, yeah.
But I mean, I just want to explain first why I'm wearing this orange color, right? Because in India, this orange is the color of renunciation and letting go, right?
Yeah.
If you look at a lot of Indian sages and kind of like holy people, whatever, it's very common that they wear this color, and it's one of my favorite colors. So obviously, you probably know me. I'm always wearing a suit or something in business, wearing some, like kind of. But I thought I'll just wear this color for this conversation. I love this color, and
I love that color too. I have
yeah.
one of my favorite tops is orange, and yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's why I'm wearing this bright orange t-shirt. Yeah. Well, so it's difficult, like talking about yourself as an identity, to describe who you really are,
Mm,
uh, because I've 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 come to what I've discovered from letting go is that there is no such person there,
mm,
right?
mm.
So even though my name's Christopher Claudius, I was born, I grew up under certain circumstances. I do business. I'm an entrepreneur. I've been a musician when I was younger. I lived a dream, for a long time, and then I moved into the internet businesses and the technology, and I've been trying to, create a technology startup that goes global. My ambitions are quite big, uh, but that's not who I really am. And that's what I realized. It's like that's just a collection of ideas and a belief system projecting outwards, basically. You know, when I was born, like when I was in my mother's womb, I was a cell. There was a cell there. That cell didn't have a name or anything. It just was a cell. It came out, it was a baby, and they called it Christopher, right? I didn't like that when I was young. I wish they called me something else, but it's too late. Anyway, and then I am. So you go through life, and then you kind of pick up all these concepts, these belief systems. Your karma comes into play, and your what's called sankharas come into play. We'll talk more about this later because these are some terminologies maybe people are not aware of. Uh, and then you kind of like you essentially what you are when you were born is like a bit of a neural network, if you know what I mean. you
Mm,
know,
mm.
your neurons and your are connecting kind of ideas and concepts. Machine learning, basically, that's what we're doing. We're machine learning ourselves. A life, what we then call life, but basically it's data that you picked up and you believe to be true. Based on opinions, networks of opinions, circumstances, conditions, people, your mother, father telling you that's real, that's what is real. Your teachers in school telling you that's real, that's who you are, that's you're a man, you're this is what you got to do.
Mhm,
And so
mhm.
you kind of assimilate this belief system, uh, and then you say, okay, that's who I am, right? And so you go out in the world saying, this is who I am. I'm Chris. I'm a musician or an entrepreneur or a doctor or whatever, engineer. But that's not who you really are. That's the thing. It's just an idea, a projection, right? So you go along with that kind of idea all your life, trying to do things, and sometimes they work, and sometimes they don't work. Most of the time, they don't work. So I found that basically life's really flowing between the banks of pleasure and pain. That's what we call life.
Mhm.
When things are good, there's pleasure, basically, and they don't last for long. And then you're flowing to the banks towards pain, where what you want is not happening, or you've had some sort of physical problem, a disease, or so your body's not right. Uh, so essentially, you realize that you come to the. I mean, some people, I say, if they have a good karma, right, um, then life can be pretty straightforward for them. Whatever they do can happen. It's a difficult concept to grasp. What karma really is, and we'll probably come back to that later as well. But if you're not, if you're always trying to do something, and you can either uh, become successful or meet obstacles, right? So that's what's happening most of the time. In terms of so at some point, I think you come to you come to a point and ask yourself, well, what is it really all about? Because life could go well for you for a long time. For example, you could get what you want. Life could be good, but then suddenly, when it all piles up on you, when things go bad, and you don't get what you want, what I mean, things start, circumstances start changing, and you're challenged, and your plans are laid to waste, and whatever you're planning is not happening. And then you think to yourself, what am I really in control of the situation, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
you know, uh,
Because often we believe we are always in control, don't we? In many respects, and we think, okay, we're in control. I'm this person, and I can do this. I can create. But then a lot of the times as well, we believe we're the victims of life. Oh, is that true?
I think a lot of people do that. I'm not definitely not one of those people. I mean, a lot of people do believe they're victims of life and circumstances. So that's a wrong view, and that should really be changed. I think it's important for people to recognize that that's a negative, way of living, and to change that. Essentially not a victim. What it is that it's a karmic thing, and it's to do with karma and some karas. This is what I've come to the conclusion now anyway. And we're not talking about karma in terms of a religious kind of thing. It's a science, really. It's like a law, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah,
gravity. It's a law of cause and effect.
yeah.
Essentially, it's like a programming. It's like an if-else statement. It's like, if you do that, that will happen. If you do that, that will happen, kind of thing.
Spoken like a true computer programmer, right?
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. It's kind of like common sense. So it's like, um, it's what's action, really. It's what basically puts things into action, energy into action. It's your intention, and then you make an action, but that action is going to have some circumstance, some it's going to create some sort of circumstances that might be good or bad, right?
Yeah, yeah.
um so going back to the thing is, it's like, do you really have full control over your life? When things are going right and well, you think you might do, right? And we've been taught to believe in life that there's free will and stuff like that. uh, and there is, to a certain extent. I mean, we live in a society where we can speak what we want to. We can say what we feel. We can, have freedom of speech. But let's say if you live in some countries, you can't do that. So, you can't speak what you feel like. You can't. So that again depends on circumstances as well.
Yeah.
So it's not really. So when you come to that point where you feel, well, who really am I? Uh, do I have full control over my life? Because if you had full control of your life, then whatever you wanted to do, you would do, and it happened. It would happen, right? There wouldn't be a question asked if you had everything you wanted. If you were in a causal state, say for example, and whatever you thought came into being, then you wouldn't be asking any questions. Life would be perfect. But that's not how it is, and most people find out that's not how it is.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
So
and go on.
yeah. So the question arises then, well, so I think every human being comes to that point. Well, there's two things. A human being, a man or a woman, could come to that point and say, well, who am I really? And they could maybe then inquire, take a sort of a spiritual path, right? Or they could become distressed and completely go the other way and become very negative,
Mm-hmm.
and they could say, well, life is full of shit, and basically it's unfair. The world's unfair, everything's unfair, and have that victim mentality, as you said earlier, right?
Yeah.
So that's not a good thing, I believe, because you really have to appreciate this opportunity that we have called life. That it's a beautiful thing. It's such an amazing thing, right? So you really have to try. But anyway, forget about that. Let's say you come to the point where you've got a spiritual path and you think, okay, uh, so you open this door to the question, well, who am I? What is it all about? And I think that's essentially, lighting the flame of the inquiry as such, and that path could have many kind of forms. For example, if you might take on a path of prayer and faith, and believe in God, uh, you know, uh, or you might go the way of self-inquiry, for example, like maybe like some of the based on some of the Hindu and the Buddhist kind of principles. Uh, or you might, I don't know, just
Take a
go the way.
bottle of Jack Daniels.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. Well, that's what I said. That's exactly that, and you might do, you might do all of it.
And sometimes you have to go through that in order
Exactly.
to get to the deeper aspects.
Yeah, one day you might be, inquiring and meditating. The next day you hit the bottle, right? And then you come back to the meditation again. So that process is your own process, right? Um, so I don't know where I'm getting to right now, but I think we're coming to the point of at what point do you understand who you are and let go? Basically, I think that's what I was trying to say. Because when you realize that who you really are is not real as such. It's a collection of thoughts, ideas, belief systems, automatons, what I call like automatic programs, which are what's called sankharas in, let's say, Hinduism or Buddhism. They have latent tendencies, basically, that trigger on impulse, right? So essentially, they're programs that your subconscious mind stored within themselves. The mind doesn't know if it's right or wrong, but it just triggers those on certain impulses. For example, if things get too heavy for you, you might want a cigarette, and that's an impulse, right? So
So,
those, yeah.
so then the program "I am a smoker" starts running, right?
Exactly. Yeah. The ultimate program is the I am program.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Right. That's the first program, the root program of I am. It's like, if we go really deep into it, and say that, let's say that, there's an infinite intelligence, that permeates everything, and then that has a power to project itself into form, right? And then get lost in that form. And then once it's lost in that form, it's in what they call, you're in sort of samsara or maya or whatever. And then, in a physical kind of realm of matter. And then you try to liberate yourself. But who is it that's trying to liberate? It's that awareness itself that's manifested as form, right? This might be getting a bit crazy too early.
Yeah, I was going to say we you just jumped straight into the pool at the deep end.
At the deep end, I know.
There's no sort of, you don't have like one of those rubber rings to protect yourself. You're just right into the
Yeah, we don't right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Don't mess around.
Yeah. So I think for me, letting go is that thing of realizing. The first realizing that do I really exist, right? As Christopher, is it
Yeah.
that's the thing. Do I really is it real? I mean, how can I clearly, for example, I was born, I was a baby, right? And so my body was different at that point. My body's different now. I look different now. I look different in 10 years. I look different when I was 20. I look different when I was 30, right? So is that who I am? That's no permanence there, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Because it seems so real that what we tell ourselves that we are, it feels like we are. Like I am a businessman, I am a footballer, I am a nutritionist, I'm a father, I'm a son, I'm Daniel, and you are definitely Christopher. And how could you say otherwise, right? The program seems
Absolutely,
so
yeah.
real.
It is, yeah. That's right, exactly. That's the whole point of the program. I mean, it's like everyone's bought into it, and so, and yeah, and in terms of communicating with people, you have to have some sort of identity, because otherwise people are going to think you're crazy. I mean, you don't go around and say, listen, I'm a formless awareness, I mean, you know, you, so, but the thing is, that's an inner journey. That. I mean, initially you might get a little bit elated by some of the kind of intuition that come up and some of the spiritual breakthroughs you have, and you might think, oh wow, I've discovered this great thing, and you might want to talk about it, and people are not interested because they can't relate to that, you know. But the first point for me, the first point of letting, because letting go is very difficult, because who's trying to let go? Who's trying to let go? I mean, you
Yeah.
know, the program doesn't want to let go, right? It's invested into this life.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
It's really sucked in, so it doesn't want to lose. You can call the program the ego if you like, right? The ego, you know, or I would rather call it the primal thought of being, which is I am, after which uh, everything you know, gets collected onto this. So
Yeah.
I am is the primal thought. I am. I exist, for example, and then I become. You know, and becoming is setting into motion karma, basically, right? So and that's then we suddenly find ourselves lost in this whole game,
Can,
and so basically,
can I ask you a bit of question about this game?
yeah.
So when we attach our sense of I am to a program, like I am an entrepreneur, I'm a father, I'm a son, what are the consequences of that? Yeah, so what happens when we actually create those programs? Now, bear in mind, these programs are created when we're very young. Yeah. So what happens when, firstly, when those programs are created, and
Mm-hmm.
then what happens when we suddenly have this realization that we may not be the programs, and then we try and let go of the programs? And I know we try and like it's it's not completely correct, but can you share with us your, what you think about this?
Well, I mean, first of all, we have no choice. When we're born into this world, we have no choice. You're a baby or a child. You be put into this conditions, and you pick it up. So that's the first thing of I am this, I am that. I'm a boy, I'm a man, and then based on your conditioning, your social circumstances, your parenting, your friends, your school, you will create this identity, right? If you're fortunate enough to have love in your life earlier, you might be much more confident. But if it's very difficult to say, even because sometimes even people who've grown up in very loving situations grow up to be quite negative. It's hard to say. I think that's where karma and sankharas kick in, right? Which we talk about later. Um, so sorry, well, you were asking about.
So what do these programs, how do these programs affect us? So, we understand that at some level, the program, like I am a man,
Mm,
is inherently, there's some sense of it's not entirely true. It's not based on entire truth, because there's a much deeper truth. So what happens with that program? Like, how does it affect us, and how does it hurt us, or how does it make us suffer?
well, first of all, I mean, the thing is, you don't realize that it's a program anyway, so you're bought into it,
Yeah.
right? Because no one's told you that's a program when you're born, or no one's told you that. I mean, society, the way it is, it pulls you into the what we could call the matrix or whatever. That's the nature of how this society is. It's going outward. It's not going inward. You're not born. Very rarely. I mean, I'm sure there are some people who might train their kids to say, listen, inquire as soon as they're born and say, look, who are you? Inquire into who you really are. I'm going to give you this name, and that's not who you are. But most of the time, that's not going to happen, right? So you automatically kind of like booted up into the program, and you're collecting more and more programs. And so when you're in the program, you're operating in that program. You're creating what's called karma, right? Actions. Now, these actions, the thing is, it's like the first action happens in the mind, right? And I think that's very important to remember, because people always think about karma as something that's external. I
Mm.
did this, I affected, I said this, I made this action, but actually, the the most complex form of karma actually comes from thinking. And it's like it's how you're thinking of all day that's causing the biggest form of karma. For example, you could punch someone in the face and forget about it, right? You know what I'm saying? And say sorry to them, whatever, and that's over very quickly. But you could be carrying a thought of punching someone in the face for 2 or 3 years,
Yeah.
right? Or a lifetime, and that is horrendous. But you might think I'm a really nice person because I haven't punched that person in the face, right? But really, the karma has been created in your intention, in your mind, right? And so, uh, in Buddhism, that's really important. How you're carrying, what you're thinking all the time, basically, is what you're creating. You know, So negative thinking, for example, anything that leads to greed, anger, and delusion is going to be affecting you. It's going to be hurting you, and that's creating karma. So therefore, your program is going to lead you into the circumstances that you created in your mind initially, right? So whatever's happening internally is manifesting externally, right?
So that's why
So
we have to be very careful of our programs.
we have to be. That's what mindfulness really is, isn't it? That's the thing. Mindfulness is not actually sitting down there and just like being mindful of how you kind of like walk and talk and all that. It's also being mindful of actually how you're identifying with the programs, at every moment, basically. So because those programs are creating karma, and that karma becomes your life externally, right? So and that, if you believe that, let's say, that this identity you have in this life is a continuation of, let's say, some previous lives, which many people believe in. I mean, technically speaking, it's possible, right? I could say, but I'm not going to talk about it because I don't know. I don't know. I don't remember my past life, so I'm not going to go into that. If I don't remember, yeah, it is possible that energy is transferred, from one form to another. And I know, for a fact, I can tell you that obviously I'm not this body, and the body is probably just a suit of kind of, clothes or whatever, if you like, for something that's animating this body. Because when you see a dead body, what's happened to that body? Why is it not? What is dead, right? It's dead. The body's dead. There's nothing happening. So what happened to that animating thing in that body? Where's that gone?
Life.
That thing that gave it life. Like I'm moving my hands now. I'm talking. I'm smiling. I'm laughing. But if I'm dead right now, what's happened to that thing?
Yeah.
Right. So it's possible that there is some sort of spark of energy that continues. Until its karma is exhausted. And that's what Buddhism and kind of Hinduism believe in. And potentially, I think even they find out that even Judaism and stuff like that, have those things. Or they might call it the concept of a soul in Christianity, like you got a soul, right? But there's no point talking about those things right now because you don't know really. I mean, some people are very spiritually advanced and they have what's called long vision. Like long vision is like so you go beyond the senses of the five senses, and then you can go into certain areas where you can possibly see previous lives, or you can read people's minds or whatever. I've heard about these things.
Yeah.
But I haven't got that. I mean, that kind of long vision.
See, that's the same with me, and some of my friends say that they do, but then I'm not sure, if that's true or not. I don't know because I never have it myself, I can't. I sense that maybe some of my stuff could be from past life, just because it makes, it feels that it right, that it could be, but I can't be certain. So yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I mean, because you can't be certain, so you just got to deal with what's in front of you now.
Yeah.
And it's so, but having said that, you also have to keep open to the possibility that there's something could have happened, that's causing this, and you're here to learn a lesson. Because sometimes, often you find in your life that you're coming to the same situation over and over again, and then you have to ask, why am I keep coming to this thing over and over again? Whatever I do, I arrive back at this point. So obviously, that's something that has to be learned or dealt with, and until you deal with that, right, you're not going to move forward. So something's bringing you back over and over again to the same point. So that could be a karmic thing coming back from, you don't know when. Like, you don't know what's in your karmic balance sheet, for example. And sankharas also are what are embedded impulses that you will, like automatons, that your body that your mind will create, and then it gets stored in the body. So you'll react very quickly to that. So those are all hindrances basically in life that that stop you from being happy, right? The problem is that people think that things will make them happy. So I'll be happy when I get this, when I get a house, when I get X amount of money, or a girlfriend, or a boyfriend, but that's the problem. You see, that's where the problem lies, because all those things are impermanent.
Yeah, because they're only temporary things. You'll get that thing, and then I think in essence there'll be no more wanting for a period of time.
Yes.
But if the core underlying feeling hasn't been dealt with, then inevitably you're going to return back to that wanting state, that discontentment.
Yes, the wanting will just shift to another thing. Once you've got that, it'll just shift to something else. So it's a never-ending cycle, basically, of wanting and what's called clinging and grasping.
Yeah.
Because you believe that something in external, outside of yourself, is going to make you happy,
Yeah.
and you will never come to that because because it's all impermanent. That's a law, basically. That's a law of nature. I mean, nothing's going to last forever. The only thing, I mean, I recently heard a beautiful thing. It's like you should be crying when you're born rather when someone's born rather when they're dying, because you know you're gonna die. You know. So why do you cry when someone's dying? You cry when you're born because they're gonna
Yeah.
go anyway, right? So it's quite true, because that's the only thing you know, is that you're going to, for a fact that you're not going to last forever. So nothing lasts forever. So therefore, looking for something outside yourself that's going to make you happy is going to lead to disenchantment. And that's what everyone coming down to. So that the sort of the process of inquiry is to try and find out that, is there something else that can make me happy from within myself, right? So people could, like I said, you can turn to various different spiritual or religious disciplines. You can pray. You can think, God, okay, I want union with God. God will give me happiness, right? So you be praying. You go to church or a mosque or whatever, and you're praying and praying and praying to something outside yourself, hoping that it will give you something that will make you happy, right? That's a sort of condition, sort of a conditional letting go, if you like, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's, in my opinion, there's two kind of letting goes. One's is conditional, one's unconditional, right? A conditional letting go is when you say, you go to say, listen, God, I've had enough. I can't do anything more. Can you please help me out, right? But you're still hoping that God will give you what you really want, right?
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
example,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're still hoping that He's going to give you, or God, or He, she, or whatever that your concept of God is going to give you, so it's not unconditional. But there are some people who surrender unconditionally, and we call them saints, historically speaking, saints. They just go, and you say, okay, I'll just surrender my life to God or whatever, and they live that way, totally blissed out. The other part is unconditional surrender, or the letting go, which is that you realize that only comes when you realize that basically who you think you are as a concept is not real. And that's an intellectual understanding in the beginning, right? You have to come to that as an intellectual understanding. There's a certain amount of reverse engineering required in there, you know.
We can't get the computer program
No,
out
we
of you,
can't,
can we?
exactly, because
Yeah.
this is the thing, because we're in the age of, this is where right now what we're seeing outside. I see a lot of it actually unfolding in that way. That what's happening in AI and everything could be related to ourselves as well. You
Yeah.
know,
100%. Yeah.
and I love it. I absolutely love it. I think this could be a great thing. So, so there's something inside that when you intellectually understand, well, I can't be the body, right? Because I can't be Chris, because I wasn't Chris when I was, this is something came to me. This is my name. This is my occupation. This is like, everyone's got this body. This is actually, it's a collection of organisms and, viruses and bacteria and millions of things making this body, right? Food and blood and all that, And then so intellectually, you come to that point where you go, well, so wait a minute. So who really, who really am I? But you can't answer that question intellectually,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
the intellect will give you all sorts of answers that based on rational understanding and what the mind's machine learned up to that point, right?
Yeah, and you have to go beyond the intellect really to find the answers. You can't do it with the intellect, because the intellect is what created the situation in the first place, created yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, the thing is, I mean, there's a blind belief. Like, most people are like totally kind of hypnotized by existence in the, so like, so in that space, you're not even using the intellect. You're basically just going on blind belief, rational belief, blind belief. You bought into the matrix, essentially, basically, and you believe that everything is real, right? Society's everything is you know. But when you start using the intellect to inquire, that's a different level to the normal reasoning and rational kind of mind that people operate with on a daily basis, right? And some people have just given up. They just get along with it, and hit the bottle in the evening and do the same thing in the morning or whatever, smoke a spliff or whatever every day, and just get on with it like a drill every single day. But then some people say, okay, fine, well, what is it all about? And they start inquiring, and then you tap into the intellect to say, okay, right, this is what is this all about, right? So so that intellect will then after a while, if you're lucky enough to maybe meet someone who's a bit of a master or something, and you will be. I think that when you start that process, something will happen, and you will meet some people who will help you. I
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah,
Yeah, you know.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and they might just then lead you to diving inside yourself and inquiring a bit more, and then you realize, okay, so this is not really who I am. So what? So when you realize that, what happens then? You know, what do you do then? Okay, it's like, okay, so what? So what? You know, I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, yeah, but I'm still suffering, right? You know, I'm still desiring, I'm still clinging, I'm still wanting things to happen. So what is a breakthrough? You know, and that is the point of unconditional letting go. I think at that point you will experience unconditional letting go. If I think again, that's not up to you because you can't let go. See, that's the thing. That's the problem.
Yeah, you
So
can't,
something
can you?
has to. Yeah, you can't. Yeah, exactly. Yes, it's like because
Or the
so
you who you believe you are can't let go.
yeah, exactly. It doesn't want to let go. It's an idea that's got to completely invested into this world, so it doesn't want to let go, right? So it's the kind of your true nature, such which is awareness, that has to say. I mean, it's a very difficult thing to answer because it, at that point, letting go kind of happens.
Yeah.
Somehow it just happens. It just happens. Like I said, if you meet the right person, or you know, who's kind of who's, or you kind of find yourself in the right environment, the right place, uh, and then something, or if all the conditions are right, it could happen just like that. Or if you suffered enough, right? Let's say if you really went through a really hard time, and that's what normally could happen, unfortunately, because if you don't, if you let's say if you open the door and ask yourself the question, who am I, or you know, what am I, that's a door you can't shut. I believe after that, it's like that door. It's like that's why sometimes I feel that you know when they say ignorance is bliss, that's what it really means. Because once you open a door to certain questions, you can't shut that door. And that's it.
Because
You
everything
know,
comes up, doesn't it?
it all comes up exactly, and that's
Yeah.
a good thing. You know, because that's what we're here for, essentially.
Yeah.
You
So
know, yeah.
so I have a question for you. Now, you mentioned inquiry, and I've been involved in self-inquiry for a while. I've gone on meditation retreats, and I know you've gone on, and I wouldn't call it a retreat. I'd call it into a proper inquiry spanning 3 years, right? So I want you to tell the audience of, you know, a little bit the story around that about spending time in a monastery for 3 years, because it was relatively recently, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, we're going to go back to before that. You see that. See what happens was around. You know, I think my process first started when I was about 22, a long time ago. I just kind of like I had a feeling that look, who I think I am is not who I am. I was quite young at the time, so I discovered kind of I saw a monk once, you know, and he just looked like radiant, you know, and I thought, who's this guy, this chap? So I looked into it, and I thought this, you know, and so I went to like a meditation retreat, like a long, long time, 30 years ago, you know, and it was a 10-day retreat, and it was beautiful. Actually, I came out of there feeling completely blissed out and ecstatic, you know, without any drugs or anything, you know, and it's like, yeah, right, you know, and I thought to myself, this is incredible. I didn't want to come out of there, you know. But when I came back, it all kind of left very quickly. Within a month, I was
Yeah.
back in, you know, back in again, back into the usual kind of life. And life went on for a long time. You know, the desires and you know, and it's in a way, you know, it's also what life's about. It's a play of life. You know, you got to you got to get into these things. It's fine, right? So another 8 years went by, and then I met someone else. You know, who maybe I met a few people along the way actually that said, listen, who you think you are is not who you are. So something had happened at that point. You know, an opening that took many years to mature, if you like, and then I got a first glimpse of when I started maybe around 2008, 2009, during the recession, you know, when I kind of started losing my business and everything, things got really bad. I think I had a glimpse at that point of going beyond the intellect, if you like. You know, it just happened like in the presence of, let's say, Ruji, you know, a friend of mine, and something just happened, and there was like I just found myself in like in a state of oneness with everything. But again, it wasn't permanent. It literally was a very quick thing. It just happened, and that was it. I mean, after I got back into what you call samsara pretty quickly, but something had changed, and you knew, you'd witnessed something, right? Anyway, many years went by, and flowing between the banks of pleasure and pain, right? Which is what but then I think after my mother died, things started getting pretty bad. I went through like year upon year of like things not happening, right? Whatever I was trying to do was like not happening.
This in business or
Yeah,
anything?
in anything, yeah. And what I realized, and I remember meeting a woman. I mean, I just went to a Reiki thing, like
Yeah.
I heard about, I was just feeling, I just want to try everything. I just want to say, is there an energy blockage in my, is there an energy blockage? Like, and I was so
I know
determined.
that.
You know what I'm saying? Exactly. It's like, because to me, I was thinking, forget it. I'm not interested in anything spiritual. I fucking wish I didn't open that door. I just want to get on with my life. I just want to succeed. So I just want to get on with it. I regretted ever, asking the spiritual question, right? Anyway, I went to this Reiki thing, and she said to me, just out of the blue, she said, you're going through a spiritual awakening. She said, basically, and you got to let go. Otherwise you will keep suffering. And this woman, I never, the first time, I said, what are you talking about? She said, listen, I'm just telling you what I'm getting. You just have to trust it and let go. But and so I came out of there, and I didn't let go. I didn't believe her. First of all, another 3 or 4 years passed by. The same thing went on and on and on. And then in the end, after I don't know, in 2018, it just came to the point where nothing was, things were going up and down, up and down, up and down, constantly up and down, and I was just, I don't know, something's just reminded me of that Buddhist retreat I did, when I was 22, and I just thought to myself, you know what, I really like to do that. I would really like to do that again now, and by now it's become really popular. People you can't even get a space, right? Into some of these retreats anymore. And it's incredible. I mean, when I went there years ago, it was anyway. So I tried to find one. There was no space available at the Dhamma thing, which is a Vipassana retreat, which is very popular. And it's incredible what they've done there. It's a free of charge, and it's all around the world now. It's incredible. I think every human being should go to that at least once in their life. It's free, which is incredible, very noble. But I couldn't get in there for 6, 7 months, 12 months. It booked up, right? So I emailed. I found another one, which is in Hampstead, in Berkhamsted. There's a monastery, a Buddhist monastery. I was aware of it, but I never knew it. I just went and filled that form up, and I kind of like half-heartedly did it, Anyway, I got an email back saying, okay, yeah, we can accept you on this retreat. And then at that point, I said, okay, I wasn't that excited about it initially getting it. I still had a feeling I just want to get on with my thing. I want to do my thing. But in the end, I thought, okay, I've got this. So something said to me, well, you've got this because you've got to let go, basically. That's it. There's no other way out now, right? If you want to continue suffering and things being pulled out of you gradually, right, then continue, right? But at this point, just go and so when I went there, I got there. When I got to the gate of this monastery, I just got out of a taxi, and I said to myself, okay, fine, we're just gonna completely let go now. Like I'm gonna be like a baby, like a child in the lap of in the arms of his mother, And I said I'm gonna leave everything at the gate. When I walked in there, I said, that's it, I'm done. Right, I'm done. And I went in there, and I had that thing. There's something. It was a sort of okay, that's it now. That's it. I'm not going to struggle. And then I went in there, had it on my phone and everything, and we had a 10-day retreat. And I was aware of the procedure because you wake up really early, 5 in the morning. You go and meditate, for an hour. Then you have breakfast, and you go meditate again, and you meditate until meal time, and then you have a meal. And that's the only meal of the day, and then after that you meditate again all afternoon and then evening, and then 3 days into it, something happened to me. I can't really go on here on camera, like there was a sort of a letting go happen automatically, if you like, if you know what I mean. It just something just died.
Is this the really long retreat that you went on, or was it
No,
before
yeah.
then?
So this was a 10-day retreat. So after 3 days
Okay.
into it, like 3 days into it, I was just sitting in the meditation, and my body started shaking quite heavily. There was a fear in the body, because that's what I'm saying. It's like there's a feeling of I'm going to die now. I'm going to die, but there was no
Ooh.
fear. There was no fear in my mind, but there was fear in the body, right? But there was so I just kind of like by that time I told you I let go anyway when I walked into the gate, and so something happened over the next couple of days, and I just found myself that there was no Chris there. There was just awareness.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, there was just awareness. It was just like a oneness of everything, of everything. I was one with everything, like the trees, the flowers, the insects. There was this you've gone beyond the intellect, right? You were aware that Chris is an idea in your mind. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
So
Powerful stuff.
yeah, you just shifted to that space where, wait a minute, oh, Chris is just an idea in my mind. And it was really crystal clear. And it was like, and there's a feeling of real bliss, like permeating this whole thing.
So you could see the program very clearly in that at that state.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was crystal clear. It was crystal
Yeah.
clear that basically that who you are is like sort of like there was also this feeling that whatever you see as nothingness is full. This emptiness is full actually of infinite intellect. Oh, sorry, of
Infinite
like
energy
of
or
yeah, energy, and also kind of like intelligence.
mm,
Intelligence, yeah. So this kind of like air or the space is just permeated with intelligence, uh and so this all this everything's connected, and it's this infinite intelligence that has a manifesting power to take form, right? And so that is who you are. I don't know if that makes sense. At that point it was
it
crystal.
makes intellectual sense.
Right. Okay. Okay. Right. Yeah. 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 So that's something. Okay. So that's right. So this was a direct perception of that thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah. It
the
was.
key, isn't it? You know, because you can read about it, you can study this, you can listen to the talks, you can go on as many retreats as you want, but unless you have a direct experience, it's only superficial.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah. Yeah. But that, I have to say that if you ask me how I did that, I didn't. I can say to you, I didn't do it.
Yeah.
It happened. It sort of happened in a sort of a. I think like by a process took place a long time ago. There was a lot of years of like the clinging, whatever I was clinging to, because it's clinging that keeps you, in this game, right? Clinging outwardly. I'm clinging to this that's going to make me happy. It's all these tentacles of clinging that keep you in. But if you, so like some people are just born, for example, you heard about people in history, all the spiritual masters are, they're born, they're totally dispassionate, right? They don't care. They don't want anything to do with this life. They just, totally kind of like, they know at a very deep level that that's not who they are. And so they kind of like burn with the fire of inquiry very early, right? They've consciously inquired into it. But then there's other people who, let's say, sparked a flame somewhere in their life, maybe myself, open a door, but I wasn't really interested in going through that door, if you know what I mean. I opened a door out of like whatever, kind of inquisitiveness or curiosity, or maybe I did some acid when I was younger, or whatever, right? you know, and I thought, okay, this is more to life than what we see, right? Yeah, and a lot of so I opened that door, but I wasn't really too keen to just go all the way. I was like still invested into the clinging, right? So that clinging then has to, that's what I said. Once you open that door, you're in trouble, because if you don't go through it, this clinging is going to be removed from you. And if it's not, and if you don't, like a woman in the Reiki said, let go, because you're going through a spiritual awakening. If you don't let go, you'll suffer more, right?
Mm.
So that's what happens, because you're still clinging, and it's slowly being removed. So basically, your ego is being kind of like detached, and that's what's called suffering. That suffering can be a very long process if you don't let go, earlier. And then so things will be taken off you slowly and
Yeah,
painfully.
yeah.
you know,
And here's the question for you: why do we cling?
that's that. Yeah, okay. So that's the nature of this life. That's the nature of the mind. Essentially, it goes outward.
But why? Why does it cling to certain people, to events, to belief systems? You know, what's the purpose of the clinging?
I think, like I said, it's the nature of the mind is that it wants to go outward. I mean,
Mm.
in many respects, you could say it's a bit of a game. And I know most people are going to think well, this is crazy, but it really is. It's a sort of a game that you're kind of born into this game, and you basically you play the game, right? But if you forget who you are, then you're going to be lost in it, and that then you're going to have to try and liberate yourself from that game, right? Okay. Or you could go further and say, okay, you're going to die in that game, and you're going to be reborn again and again and again until you find out the truth and liberate yourself, right? But who is the you that's actually doing this? It's not you as a person, because if you believe in like reincarnation or that, then Chris is not born the next time around. It's someone else, right? You
Yeah.
know, Chris is just an idea in this life, right?
So
So who is it that's actually liberating itself?
so whoever, so does the, let's say, the entity or the being that is clinging, is
Mm.
that who we believe we are?
No, the clinging, the whoever's clinging is actually awareness itself.
So it's the awareness itself that clings
Yeah,
to,
yeah.
right?
Because what's happened is it's taken shape, form, and it's hypnotized by the form, and it's forgotten its true identity or its nature, right? And so it starts clinging, right?
Right. Okay.
That's what my understanding is, right? And then you know, so you go really deep into now. You could say that, you know, like to certain teachings, like, you know, Buddhist or Hindu teachings, whatever, will tell you that basically you could go to life after life after life after life, you know, hundreds, thousands, millions of lives before you know, you can come to a point where you're liberated, which is what they call nirvana or nibbana or whatever,
Mm.
right? But again, I don't want to talk about that because I don't know. You know, I don't know my previous life. All I can say is I'm dealing with what I'm dealing with here and now, right?
Okay.
You know, so all I can say is that when that happens, then you connect to the spring of happiness from within. Yeah.
So this
And then
in,
you,
yeah.
yeah, and that point, you know that happiness has got nothing to do with external.
Yeah. And
It's coming, yeah, it's coming from within yourself, and that is liberation, a sort of awakening, a sort of awakening. But the thing is that you're still clinging, because clinging is a very, very subtle thing. It's like, even though you let go of most of the, you know, most of the gross clinging, if you like, right? You let go of a lot of stuff, like, you know, all the kind of like the
addictions,
lower,
maybe.
yeah, you know, things like anger, you know, all the things that keep you bound to this kind of, you know, heavy energy. You kind of let go of it, but it's still very subtle forms of clinging that very cleverly kind of like play their way in, right?
Mm.
So I think talking about my 3 years, you know, going back to that again, after that process, something told me that, you know, you're gonna have to, this process is going to take about 3 years, and therefore you're best off to stay in this kind of environment to see this through, right? Um, Something told me that. It was really, what was happening was my intuition. Suddenly I tapped into a very deep intuition, like, and things were arising. So like knowledge, wisdom, just arise. They arise. You don't think it, but it arises in you. You get an answer at the right time. You know, and so one of the intuitions was stay in this environment, and for 3 years. At this point now, normally a few months ago, I was talking about forget about it. I don't stay around here for 3 years. I got things to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, I got to work. I want to create a business. I've got startups, this and that and the other. But this time around, it was different. It's like I just kind of said, okay, yeah, yeah. You
It felt
know,
right. Yeah, you
it felt
followed your
right, and
heart.
yeah, it felt right, um, and so I spoke to one of the, you know, randomly to one of the monks there, and I asked him, you know, listen, I just came here, and this is what happened, to, you know, and I want to stay on. Can I stay? And he said, yeah, you know, you know. So that's what started the process. They were very kind to me, and I stayed in that monastery for a while. Then I went to another one where it was just profound. What happened to me there was like. I was just blissed out for a long time. It's a term called samadhi. So samadhi is when your mind's completely silent, and you're just like just in the here and now. You know,
Mm.
you're just in the here and now, and it's like, and you're aware of everything. You know, it's very difficult to explain rationally what that state is.
You know, when I first met you,
Yeah,
compared to how you are now, there is definitely a different energy. You know, you had been on the path a number of years when I first met you on the inner journey, the inquiry. But when we got into contact after you know, your freer stint, then your energy has definitely is shifted, and you just look more happier. You just, you know, you smile, you're smiling more. I mean, you were smiling a lot before, but
I was always a smiler.
yeah, same like me as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
Yeah, but now,
I tell you what,
yeah, go on.
no, you discover what you lose actually, and that's you know, it's like I realize what I've lost now. It's progress is actually is measured by what you lose, not what you gain. And what I mean, what you lose is what you're losing all the kind of lower fetters, you know, that you know, like the lower kind of nature, your lower nature, if you like, things like anger, greed, hatred, delusion. I mean, I could still say that, you know, there's some things that are still there, like the clinging. There's subtle forms of clinging still there, but most of the gross forms of clinging, like, you know, they're just gone, right? So where you react before, in a certain way, you won't react again. That's what
Mm,
you'll notice. You know, what will arise instead of anger will be compassion. You know, doesn't mean it's still not there. And a very, you know, sometimes it could still, you know, the final liberation, you know, is I can't say that, you know, there's still now the difference is now that I know I'm identifying as this character called Chris, but it's not who I am, right? It's like you know, and so I can play along with it. You know, I'm still gonna like trying to do a new startup and this and that and the other. And I might even get lost in it, but there's something that knows that that's, you know, it's a game now, and it pulls you out. So you won't go to the depths of those kind of you won't suffer anymore. Let's put it this way. I mean, you will experience suffering, yeah, but you won't suffer the experience, if you know what I mean.
yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah,
you will still experience things like pain or whatever, but it arises, but you know that's just arising and passing.
yeah.
So you're
If
not
you're not
clinging.
as attached to the pain as you previously were, right?
Yeah, but well, you know, it's not even a case of being attached. You just know it's just what's arising right now, and it's temporary,
Right.
and
Okay.
it's arising as a result of some conditions or whatever, or some karmic thing, and it's just going to play itself out and disappear. If I don't cling on to it, it'll go. If I cling on to it, and then it'll kind of start taking form and shape,
Right.
and then you will put all sorts of additional things onto that and make it a bigger thing than it actually is. Right. So that's a very important realization, actually.
Okay. So can I
Yeah,
ask you?
so that's a constant letting go if in every moment, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So from, you know, from my understanding of where you were previously and where you are now. Now, you've always been an entrepreneur. You've been, you know, involved in startups. You've been very passionate about that, about making a difference. What has changed from a business entrepreneurial perspective compared to where you were previously? And yeah,
Yeah, I think previously the pursuits were driven by greed
okay,
and ego. I mean, not so much greed, but ego. Generally speaking, it's like you want to do something big and great and make a lot of money, right? And you know, be this great person, you know, who's done this great thing, right? Um, and that's what drives you. You know, it's also that's not all. That was not always all, right?
yeah,
My ambition's always been bigger than that. Anyway, even you know, it's to kind of like it's to bring something out that's very, you know, drive some sort of innovations, bring something to the world that's kind of like big, right? But still, before there was that motivation of coming from an egoic sense of motivation. I think this time what's happening is that because you're going to still accept yourself as your seed, you know, your expression of the divine in this life, right? So you still, you know, that's your expression. So you're not going to change completely. You know, you could become a monk, for example, and could really drop it all totally. But if you don't drop it all, then you still have to go along with the expression of who you are, right, in this life, in this form, even though you realize that it's not who you are, right? So, so what's changed, I think, in terms of what I'm doing now, want to do now, is that sort of selfish motive seems to have gone now. It's like whatever you're doing, you still want to be doing something big and huge, and they're helping hundreds of millions of people around the world. I still, as you know, when I talk about things, I always still talk the same way. But the difference is that it's much more about causing shifts that help people on a larger scale than about doing something that you want to be known as for.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
And
Uh,
because ultimately, even people who, you know, perhaps say they want to help others and make these big shifts, if they haven't fully let go of the ego, there is something that's the ego is driving that to some degree, isn't it? But when you can drop your identity and let go of that, then it comes from a more authentic place.
Yeah, because that's the thing. It's like because even when you say those things, like like I didn't say I want to do something to make a big shift, because you can't. I mean, everything happens in this infinite intelligence. If something's meant to happen in that infinite intelligence, and you're part of that plan, then you will be, it'll all be brought around you, if you're going to drive that forward, right? So, but you might not be the only one. There could be many other people, because that's supposed to be happening in humanity, or in consciousness at this particular time. That's what's supposed to be happening. So you can be part of that. Or the difference is that if something, and that's what I'm saying, there are subtle forms of clinging still there. So I can't say that I'm completely liberated from that sense of I, because sometimes those things do come up. The difference is that I'm not looking outside of myself for happiness anymore. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Right. So there is no desire to kind of like stop doing what I always want to do. And I know that that's also creating karma now. And so the difference now is that I'm not going to blame anything outside of myself if anything happens, and I'm going to suffer the consequences of that. Yeah. So I'm fully aware of what I'm doing right now. If I do this and that happens, that's my fault, because I've created that karma. So again, in this scenario as well, letting go is like, okay, fine. If something's not happening, let's say I created something and we got from A to like G very quickly, right? Everything was falling into place, brilliant, great investments came in, bam, 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 bam. But suddenly, because you're stuck now, right, at G, right? You could say to yourself, okay, fine. At this point, because now you've got something of an organization in place, right? You can't turn around to your staff and investors and they say, listen, I'm just going to let go and things are going to happen. Because you've got to have a plan, right? That's business.
Yeah.
Business. I mean, business is business. You've got to have a plan, and that plan is going to unfold the way people have bought into it. Where people bought into it because you said this is a plan, right? This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to, and if this happens, then we're going to make, this happen. And as a result of which, you guys are going to, because most people come into business to make money. Obviously, that's the incentive, right? And investors don't, most investors are going to be coming in because they want a return, right? So you can't turn around and say to them, I'll let go and see what's happened. And later on down the road. So if your plan hasn't worked after that point, you have to then realize, okay, I might have to let go myself, right? That means there's some sort of obstacle here. There's a blockage, right? And I'm trying to do everything I can, but it's not shifting. Then personally, you might have to let go, right? And allow the infinite intelligence to find a solution to the problem. But you can't turn around and say that to everyone else.
Well, you can't, because many people wouldn't understand it for a while, for a start. And they're extremely action orientated, right? They're sort of driven by doing.
Yeah. I mean, you still have to, you still have to keep trying to do what you have to do, But the thing is, it's like there's infinite solutions out there, and you might be blocking something really good from happening to you by persisting in a certain way of doing something, right? At the same time, people want you to be seen as being very persistent in a certain way, because that's what they bought into initially. They bought into your idea or project because you believe that was going to happen, and you do, and so you're going to carry that belief through because that's what you intended in the beginning. So you have to be committed to that. I'm committed. I'm still committed to this goal and to making that happen. But suddenly something is not moving, then maybe we're talking about letting go in a business sense here. Not this is different from what we were talking about earlier. Anyway, But what I'm saying is that if you didn't let go completely and totally sought the path of complete liberation, then if you're still in the world, then this is what you're going to be facing. But you're going to be facing it with awareness, with awareness that okay, you know, maybe I have to let go here a little bit. I have to just give myself a little break because, my mind's not coming up with the idea because my mind's limited around this thing at the moment, right? So maybe something, if I drop the I here and see what, the infinite intelligence brings through, then something will probably happen. But in those situations, you need to be prepared also that it might not be what what you want to hear. Yeah, and that's the hard thing. That's the hard thing.
And this is what I've found with people that I've spoken to who have actually been in business or in any industry, when they've let go, then often the answer reveals itself to them, and often in ways that they weren't initially expecting.
It's a common thing. Like you've heard it all over history. I mean, you've heard it even from people like Edison and everyone. That's what they did, right? When they couldn't find a solution, they just kind of let it go, and then the answer just came. When it's what they call a law of attraction kind of thing. When you kind of like you send a message to your subconscious mind to sort of bring out an answer, and so those things can work. But again, you're hoping that because see, at this point now, it's not just you, there's other people involved as well. So there's a collective there, and you've got to also be quite aware of that, and so the goal still has to be the same. We want to do this, but you have to be open to, answers coming from somewhere you didn't know that not what you're expecting.
So I have a question for you. So you mentioned something briefly about this huge shift that's happening across our planet at the moment, just change in consciousness. And how do you think that's going to impact the world of business that you are in? And I know, I'm mentioning business again, but I wanted to know what your sort of perception would be, and what do you think could happen, with people letting go of, what's coming up inside of them. And
I think it's a very interesting question, and one I'm contemplating on a daily basis right now. I'm really into what's happening right now. I love it. I absolutely love it. I think the whole there's a danger as well. We've got to remember we're in a strange period in life right now. There's a lot of very clever people, very intelligent people talking about how AI could possibly destroy humanity. A lot of very intelligent people saying that we've gone beyond it now. There's no so thinking about that, it doesn't bother me because humanity itself is a vehicle it's a vehicle in the container of consciousness, right? Right. There's been many species that have been extinct, right? Over millions of years, and that's evolution, if you like. So if you don't consider yourself your true nature as being a human, because human is just a concept, right? It's a sort of vehicle. It's a broad vehicle for consciousness to experience life on this planet as this vehicle, but maybe that vehicle reaches sell-by date.
Maybe.
In terms of, let's say if
that's true, people are going to have to do a lot of letting go soon.
Yeah. Exactly. That's right. Absolutely. Yeah. Because if you're scared about it, then that's it. You're shitting yourself. You're going to hope, right? Yeah. But so that's exactly why it's very important, I think, at this time. And you can see it happening. And there's a lot of young kids, actually, are very impressive about how they have such a great understanding of. This is a point now where you really need to find out, really seek that answer. You really need to know what your true, who you really are. Because otherwise, if you're going to cling on to this thing called humanity, right, or a man or woman, then it just might be beyond your control. Because what we're looking at with AI now and AGI is that they've been trained on the same kind of model of the neurons that we have, and it's becoming a super intelligence essentially. So it's going to be a lot more powerful than human beings. Already is to some extent, but it's going to be incredibly more powerful. Now, will it become self-aware? It could become self-aware. Who knows? Because we don't know ourselves. What exactly consciousness is. The scientists are still going to find out, right? So, is it possible that with all that data, that they could become self-aware, right? And is that the trajectory of consciousness itself as in evolution? Yeah. So the next kind of form of the next vehicle is much more digital rather than physical.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, these are, I love these kind of questions right now, and I think it's important to ask these because um, there's lots of conspiracy theories people are buying into as well, and all sorts of stuff about yeah, it's a tough time. It's a tough time. I'd say it's a bit of a dark time as well. But as long as you kind of like uh, tune into your own light, I think people will be fine.
yeah, 100%. It definitely, yeah. I sort of resonate completely with what you're saying about it being a tough time, it being a dark time. Um, but always they say there's light at the end of a tunnel. So I'm forever an optimist. I always believe that everything happens for a reason, for our higher growth. So at some
Yeah,
level, whatever's happening is happening to help us internally. And a lot of what's happening is happening to help us let go, because it's
yeah,
bringing
yeah.
everything into the conscious awareness.
Exactly, exactly. I think that's the best thing people can do right now is just to stop, basically. And I think the COVID thing was, in a way, a period where people did stop. Just stop and just try and stop the thinking process a little bit, which is
Mm,
very difficult, of course. And
yeah,
that's what meditation is all about, really. Meditation is probably the best tool. But again, meditation is not necessarily trying to stop the mind, because you can't stop the mind. It's difficult. But
yeah,
just sitting quietly and just looking at what's happening,
yeah,
taking note of that initially, until you get to the point where the mind kind of calms down and silences. I think that's and a lot of young people, I see a lot of young people get into that, so that's a really good sign.
yeah,
Uh,
definitely. Yeah, I
you know,
think
but
so too.
yeah, but it seems like there's it seems quite like a very crazy time, but I quite like it because I'm intrigued to see how if this is evolution itself. I'm intrigued to see that. At the same time, that we also know we're not stupid enough not to know that what's happening in terms of sort of a control situation going on in the world right now. You know, it's in plain sight. I mean,
Yeah,
it's not even a conspiracy anymore. It's all being in plain sight. So we probably getting to a society now where there's going to be like just two layers. It's a haves and a haves not. And we're looking at Blade Runner, Matrix, and the Terminator, all
I know,
that kind of
I know.
society. It's
Yeah,
all coming together right now. That
yeah,
way,
yeah.
it
It's
seems.
crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, uh, but yeah, but I'm optimistic that if it's evolution, then it'll take care of itself. And maybe the human vehicle now, the vehicle of humanity as such, is not advanced enough for this evolution. That's it. It's had it. It's like a more advanced vehicle is needed. Humans have had a lot of time, and they still haven't been able to shake off a lot of bad kind of qualities. For example, I mean, we're talking about AGI wiping out humanity, but we're wiping out ecosystems all the time. Every time you build a railway line or a road or an airport or whatever, we're wiping out billions and billions of organisms and ecosystems. And so if the AGI turns around and says to us, "Oh, well, listen, the mission is to kind of get to the stars, or to travel, beyond the limitations of the body," then and it feels that the human beings in the way, it's just going to say, "Okay, well, goodbye."
yeah,
Sorry, that's what might happen.
yeah.
Uh, so I'm intrigued to see what's happening, because I know that I'm not a human in terms of I am kind of like the human is my vehicle, but I you know the my nature as such is kind of like beyond that,
The
right?
awareness, yeah,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And
yeah.
so that's quite clear now to me. So there's no fear there.
Mm,
There's no fear that there's no doubt that this human form is a vehicle, and it's a great vehicle, it's a great form. I'd much rather be a human, and that's why people should be really grateful and lucky that they are in this form, because we've got the capacity to contemplate these things.
mm, mm.
And we
Chris,
really should. We really should. I mean, I think everyone really should sit down and contemplate this thing, because it's such a great vehicle to do that. You
yeah,
know,
100%. Yeah, yeah. But it takes tenacity and a lot of will.
Yeah, or even good fortune sometimes. Good,
Yeah.
good fortune. Yeah. Who knows?
So Chris, listen, I just want to thank you for having this conversation with me. I'm sure anyone that's listened to what you've said would have resonated or would have had a lot of wisdom and knowledge from it. So thank you so much for that. And at some point, I want you back again to have a chat more, perhaps about what the project you're working on is, because I know that has the potential to change a lot of people's lives, and we haven't really discussed it. And whenever you're ready to talk about that, I'd love you to do so.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you. I mean, yeah, I just try to speak quite randomly. I didn't think about what I was talking. Some of it, some people might not like what I've said today.
That's okay.
But that's, but I just relating my experience. What happened through my experience, and yeah. So,
That's
but thank
perfect.
you, appreciate it. So, hope you get something out of it, and we'll be able to put something there. If not, don't worry, just throw it out. No problem, man.
Chris,
But
thank you
yeah,
again. And everyone, I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I'll see you again next week.
yeah. See you soon, Daniel. Cheers. Bye.